Yo, what's going on, guys? Chris Bonner here, Overtime Athletes. For today's video, I want to talk a little bit more about absolute strength. If you're interested in program, I have one down below you can check out in the description. But for today's video, what I kind of wanted to touch on is more training absolute strength and trying to build that absolute strength within an athlete, right? If you're somebody who's trying to get stronger for a power lifter, or if you're a power lifter trying to get stronger for a competition, you can kind of utilize this method, but I wouldn't highly recommend it. This is for the athletes who are in high school, who essentially have a great potential when it comes to gaining, or a high ceiling when it comes to gaining more absolute strength that's going to transfer over to power and speed. And a lot of times with my younger athletes, especially high school athletes, a lot of times that I start off with is they haven't reached their potential and strength. So this is the one I utilize. I usually balance compound movement patterns, you know, your bend and your squat for lower body, whether that be some kind of form of deadlift, trap bar, or some kind of squat, some kind of front squat, box squat. And then I balance pushing and pulling in regards to whether I'm doing, depending on the athlete and what sport they play, some kind of horizontal press, usually a bench press, and then some kind of overhead press, like I said, again, depending on their actual sport. And then I'll complement and try to do twice as many pulling in that horizontal plane than their actual push. Now, to kind of go into a day by day of what that actual workout looks like, first and foremost, the athlete, I think they need some level of speed and power. This can be linear speed, multi-directional speed, change of direction. Power, it could be plyometrics, any kind of jump training, things of that nature, sport-specific training that they might train for their actual sport. Then we get into the actual formula of what I'm looking for. The first movement is going to be absolute strength. For absolute strength, I want this high intensity and low volume. I want to build up that athlete pretty quickly. And what I want to do is I actually want to, saying that the volume's already been addressed, I want to stimulate that nervous system with a heavy load. Next, I'm actually going to split that volume, and that's the reason why it's a little bit more lower volume, and I'm going to perform a couple sets where it's actually in a triphasic manner. You guys have heard me talk a lot about triphasic. That's essentially where each block is devoted to one phase of the actual lift. There's 3 phases to a lift, any dynamic lift: eccentric, isometric, and concentric. And what we're gonna do is for each block, so let's say it's month 1, we hit our squat for a heavy, 4 sets of 3, 5 sets of 3. Then we're gonna go to triphasic, where the first block is gonna be focused on eccentric portion, where you're actually following a tempo and slowly lowering the weight. Next block would be an isometric, where we actually pause, or an active isometric where we're pushing against, but that angle doesn't change. And then finally, it's the concentric, where we're exploding up with it, focusing on that last phase, really focusing on rate of force development. Finally, after this, we're going to focus on limited range of motion. So to go along with the squat, like I said, absolute strength, then eccentric, where you're lower the load. Then the next one, you're going to go limited range of motion. For the squat, I absolutely love the box squat. Now, depending on what the movement is and what the athlete needs, what stimulus the athlete needs, if it's absolute strength we're going for, I might load it up a little bit more. I'll split the volume, like I said, over the course of these three modalities. And what I want to do is I want to keep that intense, because I know whether it be a board press with pressing and you're focusing on that lockout, or whether it be that top half of loading the spine and being able to perform that box squat, you could typically add a little bit more load or resistance to the actual lift. And by doing that, you're being able to receive that stimulus. So when you build up, what happens is not only are you training that portion of the actual motion, but you're also getting that athlete used to handling those heavier loads, which I believe at that particular age starts to support them in actually moving heavier weights. Finally, after you've got done this on your particular compound lift, you're gonna focus on your auxiliary strength. Now, like I said, these 3 lifts, let's say for video purposes, would be the squat, right, the bench, or deadlift. These down here are going to supplement that. So if I'm performing squat with this, right, I did absolute strength, triphasic, limited range of motion. For auxiliary, I'm usually typically going to do something where I might go unilateral with a Bulgarian. I might go unilateral with some kind of a lunge, step up, elevated reverse lunge, anything to really start to stimulate the single leg, bring balance to it with a unilateral movement. And then I'm gonna perform maybe a bend pattern, something outside of the squat pattern that's going to supplement the squat pattern. So if I perform a RDL, that bend pattern is gonna really fire up the glutes and hamstrings. That's going to support it. The main difference on when I'm focusing on absolute strength with my athletes is what I notice, especially at that level, when we get to the auxiliary motions, they tend to go through the motion, right? They tend to just go through the motion. Well, my biggest thing that I always try to tell my guys is make sure when you're going auxiliary strength, you're really pushing that limit as to how much weight you're going. So if it calls for sets of 8 or 10 repetitions, I don't want you being able to get 12 repetitions. If you could get 12 and beyond, I want you to up the resistance that you're actually performing the movement with. And then finally, which is not down here, is I perform some kind of trunk, because I believe trunk training, especially stability with the trunk, is going to support overall strength and all those compound lifts. So that's my approach to being able to elevate somebody's absolute strength. And like I said, if you guys are interested, you can check out a full program down below. Appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you next time. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you're interested in becoming a better athlete, whether that be sprinting, jumping, strength, or overall looking like an athlete, go ahead and click the box here on my side and make sure that you subscribe to my videos here so I can keep sending them to you. Holler.